Between 1564 and 1589, Germany became the hunting grounds for something the locals couldn't explain. Children vanished. Women were found torn apart. Livestock dismembered, and what followed was one of the most violent criminal trials in early modern Europe. Torture exposed tales of black magic, incest, and a pact with the devil himself. Drawn from 16th century pamphlets, court records, and eyewitness accounts written in blood and ink, this is the true case of the Werewolf of Bedburg.
Before the screams echoed through the village, before the fire reached bone, Peter Stumpp was no monster. He was just a name in the local records, a landowner, a widower, a father of two. He lived in Bedburg, a quiet farming town just outside Cologne. To most, he was ordinary. He tended his fields, paid his taxes, kept to himself, didn't stir trouble. But Bedburg wasn't as peaceful as it seemed. The soil was soaked with more than just rain. This was a town split by plague, paranoia, and holy war. Catholics and Protestants living side by side, barely. One wrong word, one strange look, and you were marked. Different didn't survive long here. And Peter, he was different. Quiet, alone, Protestant, in a place like Bedburg. That was enough. Rumors started with dead cattle. Then it was missing children. Then a woman ripped open her unborn child, missing. The town whispered of wolves, but not just any wolves, ones that walked on two legs. And soon, a name emerged. Peter Stumpp, after he was caught, tortured on the rack. He confessed to the unthinkable. At age 12, he claimed the devil gave him a belt that let him transform into a wolf, a greedy, devouring beast. Over the course of 25 years, he said he killed and ate 14 children, 2 pregnant women, and his own son. He even admitted to having sex with his daughter and a succubus sent by Satan. Was any of it true? Or was this the kind of confession you give when your bones are being pulled from their sockets? October 1589. The entire village came to watch what would become one of the most brutal executions in European history. Peter Stumpp was strapped to a wheel, had his flesh torn with red-hot pincers. His limbs were shattered, he was beheaded. And finally, his body was burned so he couldn't return from the grave. But it didn't stop there. His daughter, who he'd allegedly had an incestuous relationship with, was strangled and burned. His mistress, accused of helping him lure victims, was executed too. It was a spectacle, a warning, a public message. Step out of line, and the devil isn't the only one you'll have to fear. Here's where the truth gets muddy. The only major source we have is a 1590 London pamphlet titled The Damnable Life and Death of Stubbe Peter. Some historians think Stumpp was a Protestant in a region controlled by Catholics. He may have been a political scapegoat. The confessions were extracted under torture, and we know what people will say when they're in unbearable pain. Mass hysteria and witchcraft trials were at a fever pitch. Anything unexplained was pinned on Satan. Was he mentally ill? A serial killer hiding in plain sight? Or just in the wrong place at the wrong time? We may never know. But the way he was killed tells us just as much about the town as it does about the man. There's a term for this: clinical lycanthropy. It's a real condition where people believe they've turned into wolves or other animals, documented in multiple cultures, usually linked to psychosis, extreme trauma, or cultural obsession. It's possible that Peter Stumpp believed his own transformation stories, but it's also possible that the townspeople needed him to be a monster, because if the killer was supernatural, they didn't have to look at each other. Peter Stumpp's case didn't fade into dust. It became legend, passed down in horror books, whispered in academic journals. He's considered one of the first recorded werewolves in history, and in some strange way, it mirrors early vampire trials, public panic, superstition, unnatural deaths, a scapegoat burned alive. The same blueprint would repeat across Europe again and again, from vampires in Serbia to witches in Salem. Was Peter Stumpp a cursed man, a cold-blooded killer, or the victim of a system that needed someone to blame? What we do know is this: one man's name, ripped from court records and charred into pamphlets, still echoes centuries later, not because he turned into a wolf, but because his story shows how fear turns people into something far worse.